Welcome to the Uncommon Commander. My name is Bell Borca, and I didn't ask for it, but I guess I'll be your host. I didn't ask to be Agris Koss's partner. I didn't ask to be blown up by a stupid goblin. I guess I did ask for the Orzhov life insurance policy, but I didn't ask to be raised from the dead. I thought I could keep up with the premium. I didn't ask to solve my own murder, but I did that anyhow. And now I'm gonna murder anyone who tries to kill me again. Evil has a new enemy, and that enemy's name is my sword. So I guess my being pulled from eternity and put into this chair today means I'll be your commander? Let me tell you about myself. I'm a legendary spirit soldier that can be summoned from the beyond with the use of mana. I cost 2 generic and Boros mana. That's the same name as my legion. I wonder if they're related. In life, I wasn't all that strong. I mean, I was pretty strong, but only humanly so. Now that I'm a spirit, my strength ebbs and flows with the tides of eternities. I've always been pretty tough, though. If I had to give you my toughness on a scale of 1 to 5, I would be a 5. But there's more to me than just my ghostly body. Quit staring at my sword. My eyes were up here. I have the ability to impulsively draw a card at my upkeep, but don't call me impulsive, or I'll beat you down. For justice! Also, did I mention that my power ebbs and flows with the eternities? That means when things are exiled, like any good detective, I know how powerful the magic is going to be in that spell, and then I kill you with my notes! For justice! Oh no, someone has just cast a 0 mana card. I guess this is goodbye. Sorry about that, everyone. This is your normal host, Ryan. I got rid of that guy for you, but at least he did part of my job for me. I do want to mention something he forgot to, though. He only cares that something gets exiled while he can see it. It doesn't have to stay exiled. There are some cards in this deck that make that knowledge important. So now that you know who our commander is, let's talk about the rest of the deck. I usually talk about ramp first in these videos, but this time it's actually more important to talk about our card advantage so that it's clear why we set the ramp up the way that we did. All of our card advantage in this deck is impulse draw, without exception. This makes it so that every card we draw will be noted by Bell Borca, except the one we draw for our draw step. Another thing to note about impulse draw is that it's a bit underrated in large. It tends to draw at a rate of about 1 mana per card, which is something that even blue draw spells struggle to do without any stipulations. The stipulation here is, of course, that we need to use those cards or lose them. All in all, not bad for 2 colors that suck at drawing cards in general. We have 2 non-permanent spells that let us play the impulse cards on the turn that we cast them, or up until the end of our next turn. Those are Commune with Lava and Ignite the Future. Our pure engines are Valakut Exploration, Outpost Siege, and the Chandra Planeswalkers, Chandra Fire Artisan, Chandra Torture Defiance, and Chandra Heart of Fire. A card that was just spoiled the same day that I was writing this script is Showdown of the Scalds. This card isn't out yet, as of the date that I'm recording, but it will go into this deck when it comes out. I'll personally be taking out Chandra Torture Defiance in order to fit it in. This deck isn't the best at protecting its planeswalkers, and Chandra Torch of Defiance is the best one in this deck from a pure planeswalker perspective. It's also a pricey one in terms of actual dollars, and is a magnet for removal and the attacks of our opponent's creatures. Chandra Heart of Fire could be your pick if you want. She does make you discard your hands, but her impulse draw is very fast, getting you 3 cards at a pop, and you can play land cards with her impulse too. You don't even really have to remove either of these. In the end, the choice is yours. Okay, I've talked long enough. Moving on. We aren't done with Impulse. We have 3 more, but these ones don't target our libraries. That's right, we're running Impulse-style Theft cards, Ornate Kenzashi, Stolen Strategy, and Itali Primal Storm. Because we want Bell Borca to gain power from our Impulse draw, it's important that we don't hit lands with that type of draw. To help with that, we've got a bunch of spells that filter lands out of our library, and some cards that ramp lands out. This resulted in us sacrificing some of our true ramp spells, but it should make Bell Borca more consistent. The filter cards here are Expedition Map, Traveler's Amulet, Weathered Wayfarer, and Armillary Sphere. We also have Keeper of the Accord here, which is somewhere in between ramp and filter, depending on how hard the other decks at the table are ramping in relation to you. The land ramp spells are Wayfarer's Bauble and Burnished Heart. Our mana rocks are Soul Ring, Prismatic Lens, Darksteel Ingot, and Skyclave Relic. 3 of those make any color of mana, which can be useful to us when we impulse somebody else's cards. The latter 2 are indestructible because I have a friend that has taken to running artifact board wipes and I hate it. You know, now that I've talked about how we won't land ramp that hard and that we won't have many cards in our hands because we're doing impulse draw, it occurs to me that Magus of the Balance would actually be good in this deck. It's not in this deck right now, but it might be worth considering. Know what a cool thing about Exile removal with Bell Borca on the field is? It becomes a combat trick. So it appears you have a 0/5 Bell Borca on the board. Someone swings in with a 4 mana 4/4 and a 5 mana 5/5. You target the 5/5 with Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshares, or Mangara of Corindor, and block the 4/4 for a 9 power swing on the board state. Other Exile effects are Crush Contraband and Return to Dust for artifacts and enchantments, and Crook of Condemnation, Remorseful Cleric, and Rest in Peace for graveyards. We also have destructive removal spells in Cleansing Wildfire and Geomancer's Gambit for lands, and a damage spell in Volcanic Salvo, which can make Bell Borca huge when it's exiled, and can be cast at a steep discount when it does. As a side note, if you're able to blink or flicker Mangara, he becomes reusable. Our board wipes are tailored to do a mix of taking advantage of Bell Borca's power ability and clearing the way for Bell to swing through. Doing these jobs are Winds of Abandon, Urza's Ruinous Blast, and Soulfire Eruption, which doubles as more impulse draw. Something to note here is that timing is paramount when it comes to board wipes and Bell Borca. I've seen a lot of lists that use Descend Upon the Sinful and Play of the Game, which on the surface look great as they've got high mana costs for Bell to get powered up by, and Play of the Game even has cost reduction through assist. The problem with it is that Bell will be removed by these, thereby losing his power. Alternatively, you can cast these before casting Bell, but then that would mean that Bell wasn't on the field to note the CMC of the cards being exiled, so he won't get the power from them when he enters the battlefield. Due to both the timing and the fact that they hit Bell Borca, these are anti-synergies with this deck. Bell gets powered up by huge stuff getting exiled, so I've included some huge stuff and ways to exile other huge creatures as well. Eldrazi Displacer is able to repeatedly blink things, letting you target the biggest CMC creature on the board to power Bell Borca up. Since the creatures are tapped when they re-enter, you can actually use it to get rid of troublesome blockers too, or to tap down somebody's Blightsteel Colossus so they can't attack with it. It's very versatile. We also have Chronomantic Escape and Ivory Giant, which have Suspend so they can exile themselves in order to be cast for less mana. Chronomantic Escape repeatedly exiles itself every 3 turns, and Ivory Giant also acts as an evasion card for Bell Borca when it enters play. The 2 largest spells in this deck are Metalwork Colossus, which has some cost reduction attached to it, and Pathrazer of Ulamog, who has an extra set of arms coming out of his elbows. With Double Strike or a damage doubler on the board, Bell can actually one-shot an opponent the turn these 2 get exiled, and they're pretty good bombs all on their own. I mentioned Double Strike and damage doublers, so let's talk a little more about those. I've also decided to include some extra combats in here, as they'll effectively be damage doublers as long as Bell Borca can get through unblocked. Our lowest CMC among these is 6 CMC. Those cards are Aurelia the War Leader, Embercleave, which is also our only equipment in this deck, Fiery Emancipation, Insult to Injury, and Onward to Victory. At 7 CMC, we have Angrath's Marauders, Gisela Blade of Gold Knight, and Response and Resurgence. Well, there's no point in powering Bell up if we can't get him through, and he has no natural evasion on him. So luckily, red is one of the best colors for getting through unblocked. Don't believe me? Perhaps these cards will change your mind. Alright, the first card here is colorless, but Glaring Spotlight is cheap and packs a lot of utility for us. The cards that make Bell unblockable are Destructive Tampering, Cosmotronic Wave, Ruthless Invasion, and Ordered Chaos. Sudden Disappearance gets rid of blockers outright for the turn, just be careful about using it against ETB decks. As a bonus, these all work for all of our other creatures too, so eat your heart out, blue decks. To help protect our board state, we also have a few protection spells. Those are Legion's Initiative, Eerie Interlude, and Promise of Tomorrow. Also, remember Eldrazi Displacer from earlier? He can target our creatures to protect them from targeted removal too. So I'm just gonna warn you straight off, our land base is kinda weird in this deck. Let me show you what I mean. We're gonna start with our utility lands. First up are the modal lands, Sejiri Shelter, Shatterskull Smashing, Kazul's Fury, Makindi Stampede, Akum Warrior, Emiria's Call, and Ondu Inversion. These all have a variety of effects, but are tap lands on their backsides. Well, actually, Shatterskull Smashing and Emiria's Call are more like bolt lands on their backsides, but still. These are super useful because they've got a CMC, but can be played like a land, and if you don't need the land, just cast the spell instead. Our other utility lands are Handwear Battlements, Myriad Landscape, Mystifying Maze, Scavenger Grounds, Sunhome, Fortress of the Legion, and Thespian Stage. We also have the Indestructible lands, Cascading Cataracts and Darksteel Citadel. These are in here chiefly because we're running Cleansing Wildfire and Geomancer's Gambit. If those target these lands, they'll actually ramp us like an extremely situational rampant growth. For color fixing, we have Command Tower and Exotic Orchard. We then round it out with 11 mountains and 8 plains. Well, with all those lands out of the way, we're past the boring stuff and into the fun stuff. This segment is a segment in which I talk about fun, powerful, and interesting things this deck can do that I feel needs special attention. And it's a segment that I like to call The Final Countdown! Today's Final Countdown is going to make your opponents wish you had pulled out a different deck, because today we're going to be talking about the meanest, nastiest things this deck can do to help you win. Opponents rage quitting is still you winning. At number 5, we have a card that likes to use our opponent's cards against them. It's Chaos Wand. Okay, so this one isn't strictly mean, it's more just really good with a tiny pinch of salt thrown in. But just think of how many cards you're going to get to exile for Bell Borca before you find an instant or a sorcery in your friend's big, stompy, and splashy Rurik Thrar deck. I talked up Impulse Draw earlier, and it's true the low mana cost of the draw is a big bonus, but having to use it right away is a bit rough. I unfortunately don't have a solution to that problem, but I can make it everybody else's problem too. Introducing at number 4, Uba Mask. Now, everyone's card draw is Impulse Draw. You're welcome, Nekusar players. Even better than making everyone draw as Impulse is just not letting players draw cards at all. At number 3, Omen Machine does that task well. Sure, they'll get to top deck for free, but doing so will power Bell Borca up for the turn, and everything that says draw cards becomes useless. Unless your opponents can Impulse Draw or have Fact or Fiction style draw in their decks, they're in trouble. So 2 stax pieces later and we're still only at number 2? What kind of horrible salt mining madness machines must the next cards be on this list? Well, let me show you. At number 2 is Chaos. Pure, unadulterated chaos. And who doesn't love chaos? Possibility Storm is our card's name. You'll still get to cast your spells as normal since you're on Impulse Draw, but everyone else with a hand? Yeah, they have no idea what they're casting, and Bell Borca is getting powered up every time they do decide to cast a spell. Okay, chaos can be worse than stax, especially when that chaos has elements of stax, but that was only the number 2 card. That means at number 1, we have the only thing EDH players hate more than chaos and stax. That's right, you impulsive little salt sowers. At number 1 is actually both mass land destruction and a combo. This one's going to be hard to pull off due to all of our draw being impulse, which is why I didn't feel too terrible about putting it in the deck in the first place. So it's best if we start with one of our 2 cards in this combo in our hand, and a graveyard exile card waiting in the wings. Rest in Peace is probably the easiest, but anything that will exile an entire graveyard will do. The cards in this combo are Boom and Bust and Oblivion Sower. Tap all of your lands for mana, with the knowledge that they're going away very soon. Cast the Bust side of Boom and Bust to destroy all lands. Then exile the graveyard that they're in. Then use the remaining floating mana to cast Oblivion Sower, giving you all of someone else's lands that were just destroyed. This should give you a full field of lands with nobody else having any lands at all. It's even better with Valakut Exploration in play, triggering for each landfall. At this point, you've won the game. Just be aware that you didn't make any friends doing so. Actually, if you're afraid of the reactions that this combo will create, just use the Boom side of Boom Bust and take Oblivion Sower out of the deck, and now you can fit in either Showdown of the Scalds or Magus of the Balance without needing to remove anything else. This combo just keeps on giving. Alright my friends, that concludes the deck tech. I want to thank you for watching today, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember to give that like button a little tickle, and if you haven't already, please subscribe so that you can be notified of our future content. Let me know what you thought of the deck in the comments section, or email me at uncommoncommander@gmail.com. I also take requests, so if there is a particular commander or style of deck that you want to see happen, let me know and I'll make a video for it. Now then, I'm going to go pick up my car from the shop. How it became sentient enough to go shopping is something I'll never understand.